You know, we're all pretty used to AI that can chat, but we're now moving into a whole new era, the world of AI agents. These are systems that don't just talk. They take action, they solve complex problems, and they actually get things done. So let's dive right in.
So what do we really mean by agentic AI? Well, it's all about going beyond a simple question and answer. We're talking about an AI that can take a big, messy goal, break it down into smaller steps, use tools like APIs or databases, and then actually work through that plan to make it happen. Think of it like this. It's the difference between asking, "What's the weather in Paris?" and asking, "Hey, find and book me a flight to the sunniest place in Europe for next weekend." See the difference?
Now that sounds absolutely amazing, right? But here's the thing. Here's the catch. Building these agents for the real world, for production, is way, way harder than it looks. Going from a cool little demo to a rock-solid application that real users can depend on, that's a huge leap. So what makes it so tough?
And that question, well, it brings us to what developers in the trenches are calling the production agent problem. It really just boils down to a few core challenges that anyone trying to build a serious AI agent has to face and hopefully solve.
Okay, first up, latency. A single call to a big language model can feel kind of slow. Now imagine a real agent that might need to make dozens of these calls, to plan, to use a tool, to check its work, to think again. All that time stacks up fast. And what should be an instant response turns into seconds, minutes, sometimes even hours. And let's be honest, nothing kills a user's excitement faster than just staring at a spinning wheel.
Second, and this is a big one, is reliability. The more steps your agent has to take, the more chances there are for something to go sideways. You could have a network error, a weird response from an API, or the language model could just give an unexpected output. Any one of these can just completely derail the whole process. And having a 10-minute task fail at the 9-minute mark, it's not just frustrating, it's incredibly expensive, both in your time and in your computing bill.
And finally, we've got to talk about non-determinism. This is a tricky one. Unlike your standard computer code, you can never be 100% sure what a language model is going to spit out, even if you give it the exact same prompt. Now, this creativity, this open-ended nature, it's its superpower, right? But for testing and quality control, it's a total nightmare. I mean, how can you possibly guarantee your agent will do the right thing every single time?
So, faced with all these problems, latency, reliability, this unpredictability, the team at LangChain decided to go back to the drawing board. And the result of that was LangGraph, a brand new framework built from the ground up to specifically solve these tough production challenges.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This isn't just hype. Industry analysts are really starting to pay attention. A recent report from Forrester actually highlighted its innovation, saying it's at the forefront of the market. That's a huge signal that this is a serious tool for building serious applications.
This really gets to the core philosophy behind LangGraph. It's not just some small update, it's a total reboot, and it's based on tons of real-world feedback from developers. The key decision they made was to put production readiness above everything else. That means giving developers more direct control and focusing on making things durable. And this part is crucial, it's designed to handle cycles and loops. This lets an agent try something, check its work, realize it made a mistake, and then try again, which when you think about it is a lot closer to how we humans actually solve problems.
Okay, so how does it actually do all this? What's under the hood? Let's take a look at the key features LangGraph gives you to tackle those production problems head-on. Right, to solve that massive reliability problem, LangGraph introduces something called checkpointing. And this feature is absolutely brilliant for making agents durable. The agent saves its state, its memory, its progress at every single step of the process. So if it fails, let's say at minute 9 of that 10-minute task, you don't have to start all over again from scratch. You just resume from the last good state. It saves a huge amount of time and money.
And what about managing that unpredictable, non-deterministic nature of AI? Well, for that, LangGraph has built-in support for human-in-the-loop workflows. This means you can design your agent to actually pause and ask a human for approval before it does something critical, like sending an important email or deleting a bunch of data. This gives you the ultimate control, the ultimate safety net.
And to deal with that frustrating latency problem, LangGraph has what's called first-class streaming. So even if the total time to get the final answer is long, you can stream the agent's thoughts and its actions back to the user in real time, token by token. This is all about managing perceived latency. The user can see that the agent is working, they can follow its train of thought, and that makes the wait feel so much shorter and way more interactive.
Okay, the features sound really powerful, but what about the real-world impact? This is where the rubber meets the road.
Let's see how these tools are actually translating into real business results, and we'll start with a massive case study from the fintech giant Klarna.
I mean, wow, that's a seriously powerful statement, and it's coming straight from Klarna's CEO. They use LangGraph to build their flagship AI assistant, and the results? Well, they've been nothing short of transformative.
Just take in this number for a second. 80%. By building their agent with LangGraph, Klarna slashed the time it takes to resolve a customer's problem by 80%. That's not just a small improvement. That is a complete game changer for their customer service. And the scale here is just as mind-boggling. Their AI assistant is now doing the work of 700 full-time human agents. It's handling millions of conversations, automating all that repetitive work, and freeing up the human team to focus on the really complex, high-touch customer issues. And this success isn't just a one-off thing, limited to one company or one industry. Nope, we're seeing huge impacts all over the place. In cybersecurity, companies like Perficio and Airtel are cutting their investigation times by over 30%. In finance, Ally Financial is using it to explore some really futuristic agent workflows. The pattern here is crystal clear. This is a tool for building applications that have a massive impact.
But an AI that can take real actions in the world also introduces some very real risks. Power and responsibility, they go hand in hand, right? So security can't just be an afterthought. It has to be absolutely essential. So let's talk about how these risks are being managed.
The main principle here is that the developer is always in control. LangChain's own documentation is super clear about this. You have to follow security best practices. That means things like limiting the agent's permissions to the absolute bare minimum. You have to assume it might misuse those permissions. And you have to use multiple layers of defense. Never, ever rely on just one single thing to keep you safe. And look, part of building securely is being transparent about vulnerabilities. Just like any complex piece of software, issues are found over time. This table shows some recent high-severity reports from GitHub's own advisory database. It's a good reminder of why it's so critical for developers to stay updated and apply patches as soon as they're released.
The really good news, though, is that a whole security ecosystem is starting to build up around these tools. For example, solutions like CodeGate can act as a kind of gateway. They automatically scan your prompts to find and remove sensitive data, like API keys or personal info, before they ever get sent to the language model. That adds a really critical layer of protection.
So the key security takeaway is this. Yes, risks exist, but LangGraph is specifically designed to put the developer in the driver's seat. It gives you flexible tools for things like authentication, so you can define exactly who can do what. You can completely disable all telemetry for maximum privacy. At the end of the day, you control your application and you control your data. And that really brings us to our final thought for today. Agentic AI, it's not science fiction anymore. It's here, and it is already having a massive impact. So the question for all of us, for developers, for businesses, is no longer if we should use AI agents, but how. How do we build them the right way so that they're durable, secure, and ultimately worthy of our trust? Thanks for joining this explainer.